Well, hello and welcome to the greenhouse. Today I'm going to be showing you how I sow my sweet peas, and I hope that you'll find it useful. Back when I had a flower farm, sweet peas were one of the main crops that I grew. Scotland is typically a really good place to grow sweet peas. We don't get to seed, and there's usually quite a lot of rain, so they are very hungry and thirsty plants, so they like it to be quite rainy, lots of moisture in the soil. Now I just grow sweet peas for myself, but I would say that I do still grow quite a lot of them because I absolutely love them. So how do I grow my sweet peas? Well, the first thing is I will have my sweet peas here in the greenhouse where we have mice right the way over the winter. So that makes them quite vulnerable to being eaten by mice. If you also have that problem, I have a little tip for you. First of all, I'll put that over there. Get a jar and a little bit of cloth and some white spirit, and just pour into your jar about that much. It's about a centimetre of white spirit, and put your cloth into the jar. See, I've got it's a rather broken jar, and squish it about a bit until that cloth takes up some of the white spirit. Okay, so it needs to really smell of white spirit. Then lay out my cloth, get my sweet pea seeds, and I'm going to put them into the cloth. So here are my sweet pea seeds in here. Now I'm just going to pour them all into that, and then scrunch up the cloth around the sweet peas, put it back into the jar, and let that kind of smell impregnate the coating of the sweet peas. Now, this seems to just deter the mice. And even when the sweet peas have leaves on them, and presumably they don't smell of white spirit anymore, the mice just seem to leave those particular plants alone. So if you have a mouse problem, that would be my suggestion. So actually, what do I sow the seeds into? I use these. These are called root trainers. They are plastic. I have had these ones for 6 or 7 years. They open out like little books. And the reason that these are fantastic for growing sweet peas is that they have these little channels down them, like that. And they are open at the bottom so that the roots will go all the way down to the bottom and then be root pruned, which gives you bushier roots. What happens is the seed will germinate at the top here, and the root will go all the way down here and poke out at the bottom. But because there is no soil at the bottom, and it's just kind of like hanging in the air, because if you see, they go into a thing like this, which keeps them away from the ground. So you're in the air, and the tip dies off. And when the tip dies off, more roots come from further up. And that is why this particular design works brilliantly for sweet peas. It really encourages the growth of roots. Broad beans and things like that as well. So my aim is to get them to fill this by February, ready for my next batch of sweet peas. And I will, in February, be transplanting these November sown sweet peas into rose pots. You can see that will give them a little bit more depth in there, but it's the same kind of shape. What sweet peas really love is deep roots. You can grow them in quite a narrow pot, to be honest, as long as you give them depth. So let's get going with growing the sweet peas. So here are my root trainers. And the first thing that I need to do is just check that they are all properly put together and that there's no slugs have crept in there. And then I'm just going to fill the whole thing up with my compost. This isn't a seed compost, it's a general purpose compost. Seed compost is a little bit lacking in nutrients for sweet peas. They like their soil quite hefty. Just pop this right the way up the top. Now you can sow sweet peas anytime between October and the end of February. And to be honest, bits of early sowing for a general gardener are not massive. I get flowers 2 weeks earlier from the ones that I sow in November, as opposed to the ones that I sow in February. And I would say that they become a little bit less prone to drought because they're going to be into that. So they'll have massive amounts of roots. But the disadvantages are that you're going to have to keep your plants somewhere sheltered. Mine will stay in a cold frame until March maybe. So if you don't have a greenhouse or you don't have a cold frame, just wait until February. Don't worry about this. And then you can grow them on a windowsill and put them somewhere sheltered. Because for me, I think that of sweet peas is actually because I just like the idea of something growing in the greenhouse, and it gives me a chance to mess around with seedlings, which I love. Right, so I've filled that up and I'm just going to drop it a few times, and as you can see, that's meant that the compost has actually gone down, because the important thing with these is that you don't end up with little gaps, little air holes in it. Some more on the top. It's actually amazing how much compost goes into these. And now I want to water that, and what I'll do is I will put it into a tray, then I'll water it and I'll leave it to soak up all of the water. So here's a tray which actually also works as a lid. Put it in here. And now I'll water it. So what should you do if you don't have root trainers? Well, a lot of people use the insides of loo roll holders. And they work very well, but I would suggest that you make a couple of changes to the way I've seen it being done, just to make it a little bit more like those root trainers. The first thing I would do is I would get a tray, but just like an old seed tray is fine. Then you're going to put your loo rolls in here so that it completely fills up your tray. Because you can see, even this one here, it's beginning to get a little bit soggy, and when they get soggy, they can pull apart and things. So the tighter that they are into your tray, the better. And the second thing that I would do is I would put a layer of gravel in the bottom, because then you have something that will be like a root trainer, in that the seed will be there, the root will come all the way down here, it will hit the gravel, and that root training will start making the bushier roots. The other thing that I do not suggest you do is to keep the cardboard on when you're planting out in the garden. Yes, it does decompose, but it doesn't decompose quite enough. So I would say that you have this full of soil. So you're filling it up in the tray on top of the grit, or gravel. Right, so you have it all like that. I suggest that when you're planting it, and you have this full of roots, what you do is you just unravel that. And then hopefully you would end up with just your plug of soil with the plant in it to put into your garden or into your pot if you're doing a bigger pot. Right, I think that these should be ready to go. So, seeds want to grow. Often we really worry about seeds, and I think that there's something about that tension and wish for perfection that kind of just makes things more difficult than they should do. Seeds generally want to grow. Sweet pea seeds will need warmth to germinate, but then as soon as they have germinated, they don't need to be warm anymore. They don't like, you couldn't put them straight out in the garden, they wouldn't grow, but they're quite happy in a cold frame or an unheated greenhouse. But to start them off, they need to have some heat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 seeds per loo roll in there. You could also use just a normal pot, and then as soon as it has filled this, put it into something bigger. But you get for these roots, the happier they will be. And I won't thin them out. 2 seeds will be absolutely fine, and then I will put them into here as the 2 seeds. The other interesting thing is people always say, oh, you know, sow more seeds than you're wanting. But generally, germination rates are so good with modern seeds that you don't need to do that. So these are actually seeds that I have left over from last year. But the ones that I'm planting in February, which are all going to be dark coloured varieties, because I want to see how they print. I'm getting them from Owl's Acre sweet peas. And if you are in the studio club, we have a discount for Owl's Acre is in the forum. You can go and check that out. I'll also put the details. I mean, they're if you're in the UK, they are just a great sweet pea specialist. And I'll put the details underneath here. Right, that's that all filled up. And I'm just going to put a layer of compost right over the top to hide the sweet peas. They don't need to be really well covered. They don't need to be very deep. They will sort themselves out. They're nice, straightforward plants. Right, now I'm going to drain this. Okay. And I'm going to put it into a polythene bag and into my airing cupboard. The polythene bag is there really so that I don't spill the soil all over the house. But it will also keep the moisture in, and then every single day I need to check to see whether there's any sign of germination. As soon as I see any green, it will come back out here and it will continue its life until February, either in here or in the cold frames. And then I'll begin to acclimatise it. But it will probably be the end of April by the time they actually go out into the garden. So if you don't desperately want to be tending your sweet pea plants over the winter, I would really say or if you don't have a greenhouse or a cold frame, I would say wait till February and plant them then. Now I have a free little booklet to download all about the way that I grow sweet peas, which takes you from the sowing right the way through to how to plant them out, how to train them, all of that kind of thing. And you can get that in the description underneath this. So happy sowing, and I'm going to go and pop these into my airing cupboard.